Have you ever felt stuck in a struggle that seems endless? One of those battles that test your faith, your character, and even your identity? Imagine wrestling all night with someone, only to realize you've been face to face with God Himself. That's exactly what happened to Jacob, and his story holds life-changing lessons for you today. What if your greatest struggle is actually the doorway to your greatest blessing? In this video, you'll discover how a simple physical struggle became a spiritual milestone, revealing God's power to transform hearts and destinies. We'll uncover secrets about faith, forgiveness, and how God's promises unfold in ways we least expect. But here's the twist. This isn't just Jacob's story. It's a mirror of your own journey. Are you ready to see how God can turn your struggles into victories? By the end of this video, you'll walk away with practical tools to face your own Jabbok River moments and emerge stronger, just like Jacob. But first, let's dive into the beginning of this incredible story, where it all started, even before Jacob was born. From the very womb, Jacob's life was marked by conflict. Even before he took his first breath, he was wrestling with his twin brother, Esau. But this wasn't just sibling rivalry. It was a divine setup. God told Rebekah, "Two nations are in your womb, and the older will serve the younger." Genesis 25, verse 23. Imagine the tension in that household. What could God possibly be planning through such a chaotic beginning? Here's the thing. God often uses conflict to prepare us for His purpose. Jacob and Esau's struggle wasn't random. It was a sign of the greater plan God had for their lives. Think about it. How many times have you faced a situation that seemed pointless or unfair, only to later see how it shaped you? That's the beauty of God's sovereignty. He works even in the mess. But here's the question. Are you willing to trust God's plan, even when it doesn't make sense? Jacob's story challenges us to look beyond the chaos and see the hand of God at work. And as we'll see next, this was just the beginning of a journey filled with twists, turns, and divine surprises. The sale of Esau's birthright is one of the most striking episodes in the biblical narrative, revealing the contrast between impulsiveness and strategic vision. Esau, tired and hungry after a day of hunting, trades his birthright for a bowl of lentil stew prepared by Jacob. In Genesis 25, verse 34, we read that he despised his birthright, showing how spiritual values can be neglected in favor of immediate satisfaction. This moment not only defines Jacob's future, but also illustrates how seemingly simple decisions can have eternal consequences. In our faith journey, how often are we tempted to trade lasting blessings for fleeting pleasures? Esau's story warns us about the importance of prioritizing what truly matters. The birthright represented not only a material inheritance, but also a position of spiritual leadership within the family. Similarly, God calls us to value the promises He has made to us, even when the path seems difficult or the temptations are great. Daily Bible reading and prayer are essential tools to keep our focus on what is eternal. Jacob, on the other hand, demonstrates a shrewd determination to secure the birthright. While his methods may be questionable, his vision of the spiritual value of the blessing is undeniable. This leads us to reflect. How are we pursuing God's promises in our lives? Do we have the same determination as Jacob, or are we, like Esau, neglecting what truly matters? As you ponder these questions, get ready for the next chapter, where we'll see how the pursuit of the blessing leads to a decisive moment of deception and transformation. But here's the question. What happens when we prioritize the temporary over the eternal? Esau's impulsive decision didn't just cost him his birthright. It set the stage for a family conflict that would last for decades. Could it be that our choices today are shaping not just our future, but the lives of those around us? Stay tuned, because the consequences of this moment will unfold in ways no one could have predicted. The episode where Jacob deceives Isaac to receive the blessing meant for Esau is one of the most complex and revealing in the Bible. With Rebekah's help, Jacob disguises himself as his older brother and obtains the paternal blessing, which included prosperity and leadership over the family. Esau, upon discovering what happened, is devastated and cries out, Have you not reserved a blessing for me? Genesis 27, verse 36. This moment of deception not only divides a family, but also shows how God can use even human flaws to fulfill his purposes. Here, we're confronted with the reality that God's ways don't always follow human logic. Jacob, though he acted questionably, was aligned with the divine promise revealed to Rebekah before the twins' birth. This makes us reflect. How often do we judge life's circumstances without understanding the greater plan God is weaving? The story teaches us that, even amid mistakes and conflicts, the Lord can bring transformation and fulfill his promises in ways we can't predict. However, it's important to note that Jacob's deception brought painful consequences, including years of fleeing and separation from his family. This reminds us that, while God can use our flaws for his purposes, our choices still impact us and others. The pursuit of blessing should be done with integrity and trust in God, not through questionable shortcuts. As you reflect on this, get ready for the next chapter, where we'll see how Jacob, in his flight, encounters God in a powerful and transformative way. Picture this. Jacob is alone, running for his life, with nothing but the clothes on his back and a heart full of fear. He's left behind everything he knows, his family, his home, even his identity. But then, in the middle of nowhere, God shows up in a dream. A stairway to heaven appears, with angels ascending and descending, and God himself stands at the top, renewing his promises to Jacob. Can you imagine the awe he must have felt? This moment is a game changer. Jacob, the deceiver, encounters the God of his fathers in a way that shifts his entire perspective. God says, "I am with you and will watch over you wherever you go." Genesis 28, verse 15. It's a promise of presence, protection, and purpose. But here's the kicker. Jacob didn't earn this. He was running from his problems, yet God met him anyway. Sound familiar? How many times have you felt like you're running from your past, your mistakes, or your fears? Jacob's story reminds us that God meets us right where we are, even in our mess. And if he did it for Jacob, he can do it for you. But the journey doesn't end here. In fact, the most intense struggle of Jacob's life is just around the corner. Are you ready to see what happens next? Imagine wrestling all night with someone, only to realize you've been fighting God himself. That's exactly what happened to Jacob. Exhausted, desperate, and clinging for dear life, he refuses to let go until he receives a blessing. And in that moment, everything changes. God touches his hip, leaving him with a limp, a permanent reminder of his encounter with the divine. But he also gives him a new name, Israel, which means he struggles with God. This is the turning point in Jacob's life. No longer is he the cunning deceiver. Now, he's a man marked by God's touch. But here's the question. What about you? Are you willing to wrestle with God, to hold on until he blesses you, even if it leaves you changed? Jacob's story shows us that true transformation often comes through struggle. It's in the fight that we discover who we really are and who God is. But the story doesn't end here. Jacob's limp becomes a symbol of his dependence on God, and it prepares him for what's coming next. A reunion with the brother he betrayed. How will Esau respond? Will there be forgiveness or revenge? The answers will surprise you and challenge you to reflect on your own relationships. But here's the twist. Jacob didn't walk away from that night unscathed. God touched his hip, leaving him with a permanent limp, a reminder of his encounter with the divine. What does this mean for us? Could it be that our greatest struggles are not just obstacles, but divine appointments designed to change us forever? Stay tuned, because what happens next will challenge everything you thought you knew about faith, surrender, and the power of God's promises. After years of separation and conflict, Jacob finally reunites with Esau. Filled with fear and uncertainty, he prepares for the worst, sending gifts ahead and dividing his family into groups for protection. However, what he encounters is a brother who, instead of seeking revenge, offers forgiveness and reconciliation. Esau runs to meet Jacob, embraces him, and weeps, demonstrating an emotional and spiritual transformation that can only be the work of God. This powerful moment, described in Genesis 33 verse 4, shows us how the Lord can restore even the most broken relationships. The reconciliation between Jacob and Esau is a testament to the power of forgiveness. Esau, who had every right to hold a grudge, chooses to release Jacob from his guilt. This challenges us to reflect on our own relationships. Is there someone in your life you need to forgive or reconcile with? The Bible teaches us in Colossians 3 verse 13, "Bear with each other and forgive one another if any of you has a grievance against someone. Forgive as the Lord forgave you." Forgiveness not only frees the other person, but also liberates us to live in peace. Jacob, in turn, recognizes God's grace by declaring, "To see your face is like seeing the face of God." Genesis 33 verse 10. This encounter not only restores the brothers' relationship, but also fulfills God's purpose of uniting a divided family. It's a reminder that, even when circumstances seem impossible, God can act in surprising ways to bring healing and restoration. As you reflect on this powerful lesson, get ready to see how this story connects to our faith journey today. Jacob's journey is a powerful reminder that God's plans are greater than our mistakes, our struggles, and even our fears. From a deceptive young man to a transformed leader, Jacob's story shows us that no one is beyond God's reach. But here's the real question. What's your story? Are you in the middle of a struggle, wondering if God sees you? Do you need forgiveness or the strength to forgive someone else? The beauty of Jacob's story is that it's not just about him. It's about us. It's about the God who meets us in our mess, transforms us through our struggles, and leads us into his promises. So, what's your next step? Will you trust him with your story, even when the path seems uncertain? If this message has touched your heart, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you want to dive deeper into stories like this, subscribe to our channel and join us on this journey of faith. Because here's the truth. Your struggles are not the end of your story. They're the beginning of something God wants to do in you. Are you ready to find out what that is?